Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Office Hours. I'm your host, Stuart Newsom, and today's topic is AI and the workforce shift, adapting, reconstructing, and thriving. It's actually a conversation about how artificial intelligence is reshaping, not necessarily replacing, all the roles in healthcare revenue cycle operations. I know there's been a lot of trepidation, a lot of anxiety over this. So we're going to kind of take a deep dive into what that looks like and even explore what it's like to work alongside, say, an AI agent, for instance. So I'm very excited to be joined today by our guest, Lavonne Hamby, who's the Client Services Manager here at Infinix. So Lavonne, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you for asking. Just, enjoying this weather and waiting for this good conversation we're going to have about AI.
That's right, absolutely. Well, and just to kind of start things off, can you just tell us a little bit about your background, your journey in RCM, and what your current role entails?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Infinix for around 2.5 years, and I have been in RCM revenue cycle for around 20, 21, 22 years. And I actually was hired with Infinix initially as a denials management team leader, and now I'm in the role of the client services manager. So I begin in registration. That's where all the fun begins. That's the front end. And I worked my way around to the back end, which is, processing, not processing, but claims. And first I started off with self-pay as a collector. And that was fun and interesting. But then I found my way over into the insurance side where I was a collector for commercial and government payers. And I also learned how to bill. So I've worked in the front end and back end. And I also went back around and managed registration area, which was in ER and diagnostic services. So I can say I've been, like I said, front end, back end of revenue cycle. And now I'm here in Phoenix, and I have a couple of clients who we actually manage um, their AR, which is their accounts receivable. And I have a couple of clients that we manage their prior authorizations.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So yeah, anyone with over 20 years has certainly seen a lot of change in technology, but yet also certain things stay the same. It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. So
Yes.
I'm sure you can resonate with that. And especially it resonates with today's topic, because as I said in the title, but we're exploring the impact of AI on RCM professionals. And I haven't really seen, and I've been in the business for about 29 years, and I haven't really seen the impact of that technology has had, that it's having, at least in the last couple of years, particularly with AI. Um, so we're going to explore kind of what is that impact, the changes to job roles, how teams are adapting, what it means for the future of the workforce. It's a conversation that goes beyond job security and focuses on growth, accountability, basically working with AI, not against it, because I don't think it's going away. So before we dive into that, Lavon, I do want to remind the audience, that just a quick reminder that for those joining us live, we do have a Q&A at the end. So I encourage you all to submit your questions into the Q&A chat, if you will, at the bottom of the screen here in Zoom. And we'll try to get to as many of those as we possibly can. Also encourage comments. You don't have to insert a question. You can say, hey, great job, or you agree, or maybe share some insights that you have regarding your experience with AI. So with that, Levon, we're gonna dive right in. All right.
Okay.
Oh, awesome. So right out the gate, from your experience in denials management, as you mentioned earlier, and now working, with clients, how have you seen AI change the way revenue cycle teams operate? Are they embracing it, or is there still some hesitation?
Well, I feel that there's both a little bit of embracing and hesitation, but we've seen AI transform the way, revenue cycle teams handle denials and prior authorizations by streamlining processes And this helps improve, the efficiency of appeals, anything that they have to work to enhance, well, to increase the chance of the claim being paid from the beginning. And AI has actually been around, for many years. We didn't think of it as AI, but as claim scrubbing. I don't know if you know a lot about scrubbers, and that's when the claim goes through a process where it's checking to see if there are any errors on the claim to prevent the claim from being paid. The goal of revenue cycle, well, for denials is to prevent the denials. And the goal is to have that claim paid within the first 30 days. So we have seen where even claim scrubbers, it has AI logic. And, the team works alongside with it to help catch those errors. And so what's different now, though, is AI is evolving to be more proactive. We have the predictive and analytics that help teams to, identify potential denials before they happen. And so another major advantage in real time is real time eligibility. That's another thing that helps in the front end of the revenue cycle. It helps the registrars to check eligibility as the patient is being seen that day. And if you can get that eligibility and the insurance correct the first time, that's going to have your claim go through clean, because the object is to get those claims to go through clean so that they can be paid within the first 30 days. Because we all know, when your claims are aging, they're harder to get paid and they're harder to collect the reimbursement. So I think that, that is a way that teams are embracing it. Now we do have the hesitant part of it. And that is because sometimes there's a mistrust. Teams have to go through a different workflow or a process change. And when or implementations, and when you have a failed implementation or a challenged implementation, this causes people to really just not trust the process or trust AI. And then you have the other side where some people may fear that it's going to be a job displacement. And so once the team has been through these type of things, that's when you have that hesitation come in, and there's a lot of the distrust. So the way to overcome that is just really educating teams that AI's role is a tool to enhance and not to replace human expertise.
Right, exactly. And you really hit the nail on the head about the fact that AI has been around for a while. It just wasn't ever called AI. It was always
Right.
automation. I mean, I do come from like a claim scrubbing background. So I know all too well about those edits. And I also know all too well that how people have been using technology like this, along the way and starting to adapt this. But now it just seems to be, becoming more humanized, if I can use that term,
Oh yeah.
where a lot of the tasks are just, especially with AI agents. And we've really talked about AI agents here on Office Hours, as well as our Revenue Cycle Optimized podcast, quite a bit. And it's on the forefront, where it's taking these technologies and orchestrating these tasks in a more human-like manner with reasoning, decision making, understanding. These are all things that previously the technology just couldn't do. And so that brings on even a higher level of anxiety with a lot of folks.
Yes.
So with that said, we all know that AI is being used to predict denials, like you were talking about, even automate appeals, streamline AR follow-ups. Even payers are using AI to figure out how to get their recoupments back from providers. So with this question, with that in mind, sitting that stage, how are RCM professionals adapting to working alongside, say, an AI agent? What challenges do they face in this transition? Because now it's not just an automation tool they're using; it's actually an agent that's that's in place that's doing it for them.
Oh well, RCM professionals, the teams. they have been rolling with AI just like they would any, big process change or system upgrade. It's just it's to them, it's like another workflow. So they are adapting well with AI. It's all about just adapting and because AI is now taking on the routine task of, like you said, automating appeals, which if you've never put together an appeal packet, you do not understand how
Right.
we can appreciate something that will help with that process, because appeals alone can be tedious, monotonous. It's repetitive. It is, depending on if you're working a special payer. You know how to put that appeal together. But oh, I wish I had something that would have helped me put these appeal packets together. So no, people are adapting, and I think they're, like you said, they're embracing it. And AI is now also prioritizing AR follow-up teams, follow-ups. So teams can now finally shift their focus to bigger and strategic things like complex appeals and payer negotiations, that really needs human expertise. And, because we're seeing leadership, because of that, we're now seeing leadership rethink how they hire teams and how teams operate. Instead of hiring people to do manual tasks, now they can now focus on moving people into oversight of AI, and and they can put them in strategic roles so they can strategize on better ways to prevent these denials.
Right. Exactly. And with the AI agents, they do they're I talk about how it's digital delegation because they have a certain set of skills, just like a person would have a certain set of skills. And to your point, it just takes that reallocation of duties. It's almost reinventing yourself, if you will, to take on other jobs. So as AI takes on those repetitive tasks and also, performing those tasks in general, how are revenue cycle roles being reconstructed or reallocated? You touched on that a little bit, but how are organizations finding new ways to leverage that human expertise? Or is there still concern about losing their jobs?
Yeah, I do believe that there are some concerns about losing their jobs, because think about it. If you can have as you say, AI, an agent to do a whole appeal packet. Yeah, now that person that was previously doing that job, of course, they would feel, okay, now you don't need me. And you have this AI agent that could do everything that I can do. So yeah, I do think that people do worry about that. But you can now take those people that were working in roles like that and put them in roles on understanding the AI, so that there's, like I said, there's oversight. There's going to be someone has to oversee those AI
Mhm.
to make sure that it's working correctly and that everything is being read correctly, because we know sometimes it's about the particular language that it understands. So you can reallocate people into these type of roles. Now, I think that yes, it will reduce the number of team members that you normally have. So there is that. Yeah, maybe it will changed how many people you need on a team, but
Mhm.
it won't deplete it. It won't be where there's no team members and it's all dependent on AI. We still need those human expertise roles. And it's just, again, just reallocating that. And the way I think they're going to have to do that is just, everybody has to know what's the main goal.
Mhm.
What is the goal and how do we get there? And that way you can see, okay, we can use more people over here to do what we need to do with AI to help, educate them on AI.
Mhm.
You have people that have like expertise on that particular AI. There may be changes that need to be made that someone didn't think of for that AI to be able to do the job that it needs to do.
Mhm. And then we still are in a staffing shortage,
Yeah.
so to speak, and this
So it
solves
might
that
help.
area as well. So you really don't, yeah, so you really don't have to remove any staff or downsize. It's just now, it can change your, how many you need to hire, who else you're going to hire, because it's hard to find, good people these days. It really
Yes,
is.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and so this can remedy that issue as well. And so you brought up the concern about oversight. I think there is a compliance side
Hmm.
to AI. Just kind of give a little snippet of where this question is going, but I think you mentioned it earlier about the oversight, that AI is going to need, because you have to monitor them just like you would a person. I mean, you don't just let a person walk in the door and start working and leave them alone. There has to be oversight. So, how are RCM professionals ensuring that AI remains a tool for efficiency rather than something that just overrides critical thinking and expertise?
Well, I think taking a more proactive approach to ensure AI remains a tool for efficiency rather than something that replaces human oversight. Um, you know, Now you can implement governance, over it. RCM professionals are taking trying to think. So they're implementing governance frameworks that include regular audits. So audits are very important. Even with humans, you need audits.
Right.
So audits is one thing that's very important. Validation and just the continuous monitoring of AI driven decisions. And this will ensure that AI remains aligned with compliance standards and industry regulations, because in revenue cycle management, compliance is a very big thing.
Hmm.
You always have to stay in compliance because you have audits that will come from CMS, and you need to make sure everything is compliant. So we need to have, trained team members to be able to do that. So yeah, I think that's how, RCM professionals are being just taking that proactive approach to make sure
Right.
the AI is in check.
Exactly. And you hit a good point there as well with compliance. Everyone's, really concerned about revenue, building efficiencies. But the other side of that coin is compliance. And, you know, what are these agents doing? Where are they performing that work? They're an agent and they're in your office, but they're really virtual. They're actually, in the cloud doing the work. And so I've had people ask that question, says, "Oh, well, who's going to hold them, accountable?" And it's like, well, you would
Right.
hold. My answer is always you would hold them accountable the same way you would hold an employee accountable under HIPAA guidelines, that you would, and that vendor especially, because at the end of the day, it's like software. It's just very intelligent and advanced software, but it's still with the machine learning models that's involved, and with the cognitive AI that's involved. The rules don't change, and at the end of the day, the provider's still responsible for compliance. Those fines and they're not going to fine and penalize the AI.
Right.
So it's definitely making sure that the vendor's compliant. So you really don't have to change a whole lot, but you do have to make sure that those same rules apply, to the AI, how you check out a vendor and whatnot. Um, so shifting gears now, kind of to the emotional side of this. um, so kind of, and again, you've touched on this earlier, but beyond workflow changes,
Mhm.
how are RCM folks feeling about AI overall? Are they feeling empowered, frustrated, or somewhere in between? What are their biggest concerns and misconceptions?
Okay. So on the empowered, they do feel empowered, because it's a way to help minimize their work, the tedious work, and it allows, again, them to focus on the more in-depth analytical problem solving. Many see AI as a way to reduce tedious work, and they are allowed to focus on meaningful tasks. Being in denials management, previous life, I like my job. I really did. I love working on claims that were seemed really challenging, and sometimes working on those easier claims is like, oh, this is I don't want to waste my time on this. I want to work on this challenge, and I don't want to let it beat me, and I want to figure out why can't we get this claim paid? So this for a good rep, this is something that AI can handle those easy and tedious things, and we can feel empowered by finding out why the claim won't pay. Because normally, if that particular claim will not pay or there's issues with it, there are so many other claims just like it. And so when you can find a way to overcome something that is really hard and challenging on a claim, on an appeal, and you get it paid after months and months of trying,
Mhm.
that's empowering, that rep. So they can focus more on things like that than the tedious things that should be just more task oriented. And then on the other side, of the frustration part of it, some struggle with the learning curve. You have people that have been working with particular payers, and so they know all of the payer guidelines, and they know the payer rules, and they know the workflow. And so when things are changing and in this shift, they get frustrated because the learning curve, they struggle with the learning curve and the fear of losing the control of processes.
Mhm.
So that's where you have that frustration of like, oh, I had a process, this workflow was working fine, and now you bring on this AI, and now I have to change my whole process. So that can be frustrating for someone who's been doing really well, who is, they're now like a subject matter expert, and then you bring an AI and it just changes everything.
Right, right. We are creatures of habit.
Yes.
So, for sure. And I'm kind of dating myself, but I can remember back in the day when we went from like a character-based model for our software and went to a Windows version in the graphical interface. And I'm sitting there, I'm in an office and I'm training these people how to use the software and talking about the mouse. And there was a lady, I'm telling you, she says, I am not touching that thing. Talking about the mouse. Because I do not use a mouse. And she wanted that. She was used to the hotkeys, the good old fashioned hotkeys that you could use when you're getting around in a character based system like Unix or something. I know that's going back to the early 90s, but people these days probably know what is he talking about. But
I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
right, right, right. So, but that they she meant it. She meant what she said, and she was very angry that she had to use a mouse. And I was like, I am not touching that thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I didn't know how to respond. That was different. But at any rate, for with that said, what advice would you give, say, to an RCM professional uh, who's navigating AI-driven changes in their roles? How can they future-proof their careers basically and leverage AI to improve their work?
I would tell people, embrace AI as a tool. It's a tool. It's not to replace. It's just meant to maybe reshape, but it's a tool. And just learn how to integrate the AI driven insights into your workflow. And look at it as a process change. That's all it is. And if you've been working in RCM for a long time, you know that processes change all the time, all the time, because it may be because of the payer guidelines may have changed. But embrace it as a tool, and just remember that AI is there to handle the routine tasks, and it may get more complex in the future. But I think if we can just think of it as a tool, and then we can, and also advocate for transparency.
Mhm.
We want to be able to see exactly what's going on, make sure we understand, and then stay adaptable. If you can stay adaptable, you're continuing to learn in AI literacy, process automation, and updates. But yeah, I think if you just look at it as a tool to support what you do, I think that it's something that can be very positive, and it can help you, and it can help the whole revenue cycle management to not only make your job easier, but it also brings in revenue, and it decreases the time that these accounts are sitting on and aging.
Right, exactly, exactly. I mean, I couldn't agree more. That's, sound advice, there. And I think with that, I think there's going to be some others, in our audience, especially who may have additional questions, on this. So we're now going to go to the Q&A section. And so I just, again, encourage everyone to put some questions into the Q&A,
I
and
see
we'll
them.
be happy to answer these. One in particular we do have is, and I think this was one that's really more clarity, but how do you recommend for a person who wants to improve their AI literacy in general? Um, yeah, I know that's a great question. I guess that's the how do you get educated? Um, I think both of us can kind of tag team on that, but
Mhm.
first place I would go is just, documentation. Look for, I always go to Google for education. You may also, there's certain places where you can obtain information in general about AI literacy, so to speak. The best place to start is going to sound crazy, but if you're not using ChatGPT, just ask, I encourage you to go into ChatGPT. It's really easy to set up an account. There's a free account. Even the free account can get you this far, and just put in, educate me on AI, and it'll give you all the information, and ask for references, where to go to. That's the easiest way to go about doing that with education. It'll save you a lot of time having to go out and research that. But there are also associations and organizations that can help with this. You can go to HFMA, MGMA, um, even AAPC, the American Academy of Professional Coders, um, just to name a few, RBMA. They all have educational sessions, information about AI. Everybody has their own flavor, but they're all basically saying the same things about generative AI. That HIMSS is a good resource as well. It's HIMSS. So just a lot of information out there that you can go and find out more about AI. I don't know. I know I said a lot there, Lavonne.
You, you covered it all. Because this topic has been coming up so much, I have done the same thing. I've Googled, I have Chat GBT, and even I believe the new iPhones 16 has, and I'm not doing a promo, I'm just saying what I heard, but that even they have it on their phones, and you'll be amazed that if you ask the question about what is AI, it would give you a breakdown, and it's very clear, is very relatable. So no, I agree 100% of what Stuart is saying. And then I see that someone just put in the chat that they purchased a Udemy intro for AI.
Mhm.
So I've heard of that. It's like kind of like an academy, and it's inexpensive, and the instructor for the course is really interesting. So I may try that myself.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
I agree 100% what Stuart is saying about how to educate yourself on AI.
yeah. There's a lot of information at our fingertips that
Yeah.
these days. It's just, it's amazing. How much we can learn just by opening up our computers. And then another one here is, how do revenue cycle contractors, payers who use AI to process claims? In most cases where payers use AI, we have seen erroneous denials. So yeah, I'm doing a session for AAPC on compliance with AI here in the next couple of weeks, but it's it is a problem because payers are using AI. They're using AI in all sorts of ways to go back and try and find out claims they've already paid, so they can send out recoupment letters, look at those trends. They're even going back several years. That's just one example. But in this sample, this question is centering around, the erroneous denials that's coming out that's based on AI. And I know that in the past it's been a problem, still kind of a problem, is what's called this black box AI, where it's
Mm,
proprietary and you're not, and vendors do this too, because vendors may not want people to steal their proprietary content, how they do it. So there's competition there, and then payers are doing it because they always want to, keep, here's why we're denying it. The name of the game is to keep it very vague and nebulous, so to speak. And so they have this black box AI, which is a nickname. It's not the official name. But now there's this accountability AI that's supposed to, like, it's called explainable AI, that there is legislation that is being pushed that if you have AI, then you have to have some explainable AI that explains how you came up with the answer you did through AI. In this case, it would be denials. So they would need to use explainable AI to explain why this was denied. And then are they going to get detailed? No, they're not very detailed now. I mean, we get anybody that's looked at CARCs and RARCs, the denial codes and try to figure out denials. I know, Lavonne, you know what
Yes.
I'm talking about.
Yes, I
Um,
do.
it's that you got to make sense of those.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think that's ever going to change. But that's another example of how, yes, AI can help on the back end, but to Lavonne's point today, you still need those human resources because those are going to be some more complex cases in a lot of ways. So, Lavonne, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that about how, it's going to take probably a human to look into those, but definitely leveraging AI to make sure those have been investigated, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, those denial codes, 'cause sometimes can be so generic. You still have to contact the payer, and so yeah, I agree. You're going to have human investigating on that. Yeah,
Mhm. Well, and that's it. I don't see any other questions. Um, those are great questions,
yeah.
and I really appreciate everyone joining us today. Lavonne, I especially appreciate you joining us today. You did great. It was awesome.
Thank you.
And we'll invite you again for sure.
All
So,
right.
if you do a great job around here, then you'll be doing it a lot. So, really appreciate you joining us. And everyone, just stay tuned for another episode of Office Hours. We'll next week we'll have another one. Stay tuned for an announcement on what that topic will be, and we'll be happy for you to join us then. Until next time, we'll hope everyone has a great week.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.